The moment Kristi Noem sat down at that witness table, something felt off, not just in the room, but in the air itself. It wasn't the lights or the cameras or the reporters packed shoulder to shoulder like hawks circling their next headline. It wasn't the quiet murmurs, the occasional clearing of throats, or the rhythmic tapping of journalists' fingers on their tablets. No, it was something colder, sharper, like tension had seeped into the carpet, climbed up the walls, and settled into every breath in the room, as if the building itself knew what was coming. From the second she adjusted her microphone, polished and poised like she always was, you could see the calculation behind her smile. Her expression wasn't one of nerves, or even concern. It was control, confidence, arrogance, maybe depending on who you asked. But there was no doubt she believed she owned the room. If you believe moments like this matter, where truth cuts through spin, and accountability finally has a voice, then don't just watch in silence. Share this video. Make sure everyone sees what happens when power is challenged by precision, and arrogance crumbles under truth. Now we want to hear from you. Drop your country and city name in the comments below. Let us know where you're watching from, because truth has no borders. And this conversation isn't just about one courtroom or one country. Was justice served today? Or is this just the beginning? Let's talk. Let's be loud. Let's be global. Kristi Noem had done this before. Cameras, headlines, controversy. She was no stranger to it. In fact, she thrived on it. Her base loved the image she projected. Firm, unapologetic, dismissive of the so-called liberal elite. She walked in like it was just another show. Another performance where she would throw a few jabs, smile for the cameras, and walk out untouched. What she didn't realize, or maybe didn't want to believe, was that sitting across from her wasn't just another critic or partisan opponent rehearsing her outrage. It was Jasmine Crockett, and Jasmine didn't come to perform. She came to dismantle. To take that carefully constructed narrative and tear it down, piece by piece. Live and unfiltered. It was supposed to be another routine hearing, a political ping-pong match. A few stern statements, a handful of headline-grabbing quotes, and then everyone goes home. But even before Jasmine said a word, it was clear this wasn't going to be routine. She wasn't glancing at the cameras. She wasn't fixing her hair or smiling for the audience. She sat upright, still, with a composure that bordered on unsettling. Her hands folded neatly on her desk, her breathing steady. But her eyes were lit with a fire that didn't need shouting to be felt. They locked onto Noem with an intensity that made even the staffers behind her glance twice. The room had already witnessed Noem at her usual best, dodging, deflecting, dancing around hard questions with charm and half-truths. She had thrown out phrases like government overreach and media which hunt with the smoothness of a seasoned performer. She smirked, she shrugged, she patronized. For a while, it was working. She had some in the gallery nodding along. Even a few members of the committee cracked faint smiles. But across the table, Jasmine hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. And the longer she waited, the more the tension built. Not for her, but for everyone else. When Jasmine finally leaned forward, the air seemed to shift. Not because she raised her voice, she didn't. Not because she slammed the table or interrupted. She didn't need to. Her voice was quiet, but clear, steady, and it cut through the noise of the room like a sudden gust of cold wind. Governor Noem, she began, her tone deceptively calm. You speak of leadership and personal responsibility. Let's talk about that. The simplicity of the line, the precision of the delivery. It caught Noem off guard. And not just her reporters who had been half distracted snapped their attention back. Staffers who had been scrolling their phones stopped mid-scroll. The tension that had been simmering quietly suddenly came to a boil. Noem had walked in expecting a sparring match, something performative, a little ideological slap-fighting for the cameras. What she got instead was a surgical takedown dressed as a conversation. There was no performance in Jasmine's voice, only purpose. Every word she said felt deliberate. Every question she asked landed like a scalpel. And when that first line left her mouth, the room didn't just hear it. It felt it because Jasmine wasn't there to play politics. She was there to pull the truth out from behind the soundbites. And with her first question, the energy in the chamber didn't just shift, it snapped like a bone. Kristi Noem leaned forward slightly. Her voice smooth, her tone dipped in politeness, but laced with something sharper, sarcasm. Congresswoman Crockett, I appreciate your passion, truly. But perhaps if you spent more time studying real-world leadership instead of chasing soundbites on social media, you'd understand the burden of making hard decisions. A few muffled chuckles drifted from the Republican side of the room. Noem smiled wider, pleased with herself, as if she'd just delivered a masterstroke. Her strategy was clear. Paint Crockett as inexperienced, impulsive, and more concerned with clout than country. She pressed on, not giving Jasmine a second to respond. You talk about transparency, about ethics, but have you ever managed a state budget? Have you had to balance constitutional freedoms with public safety in real? Or are you just here to score headlines and rehearse outrage? Her words came rapid-fire, polished to sound civil, but soaked in condescension. Noem had done this before, use a calm voice to deliver veiled insults, to discredit without raising her own pulse. And for a moment, the air in the room tightened. Jasmine didn't blink, she didn't flinch, she didn't even shift in her chair. Instead, she slowly leaned into her microphone, calm and composed, her tone measured but razor sharp. Governor Noem, I may not have managed a state budget, but I've managed something far more unpredictable. Justice, in real courtrooms, with real consequences, where rhetoric doesn't matter and truth does. She let the silence hang. The chuckles died out. She continued, her voice steady. You speak of constitutional freedoms, yet you've advocated stripping reproductive rights from women while defending your own personal abuses of power. You want to talk about leadership? Let's talk about the nearly $600,000 in taxpayer money you spent on private flights, calling them security necessities while average families in your state struggled to afford groceries. A low murmur rippled through the hearing room. Eyes began to shift. Phones lit up and the press rose. Reporters were already typing. Noem narrowed her eyes, clearly not expecting the comeback to be so specific and so public. Well, with respect, Congresswoman, those flights were cleared as necessary by my security team, and I've addressed that multiple times. Maybe if you read beyond the headlines, but Jasmine didn't let her finish. She leaned in slightly, voice still calm. And was it also your security team that justified attending out-of-state political fundraisers while your state was in a health crisis, or was that just good leadership too? Another wave of murmurs. This time, louder. Noem looked momentarily rattled. She shuffled a few papers, lips pressing into a thin line. Her rhythm was breaking. For someone so used to controlling the temperature in a room, she was suddenly reaching for her footing. She tried to regain the upper hand with a smirk and a shallow laugh. It's easy to attack when you've never had to govern. But Jasmine wasn't moved, and it's even easier to govern when no one holds you accountable. That ends today. The room was no longer chuckling. It was listening, leaning in. And somewhere, in the back, a camera operator muttered under his breath, "This just got real." And just when it seemed Noem might collect herself, Jasmine glanced down at a document, flipped it toward the panel, and calmly said, "Would you like to explain this one, Governor? Because I think the American people deserve to know what you signed. And who profited from it." The camera zoomed in. The air in the chamber dropped 10 degrees. Noem stared at the page, eyes wide, lips parted slightly, silent, and just like that, the room exploded into whispers. The mask was slipping. Kristi Noem didn't say another word. She stared at the document for a moment too long, her silence louder than any defense she could have offered. The smirk was gone. The confidence she had walked in with, the authority she had wrapped herself in like armor, had melted under the heat of undeniable facts and unrelenting logic. She shuffled her papers once, then again, then closed the folder altogether. No statement, no rebuttal, just silence. The camera caught it, that split-second eye twitch, the faint purse of the lips, the kind of expression someone makes when they know they've lost, and the world just watched it happen live. The chairperson asked if she wanted to respond. She didn't. She shook her head lightly, eyes avoiding Jasmine Crockett's gaze. And that was it. Noem didn't storm out. She didn't break down. She didn't shout. She just faded into the kind of irrelevance that only happens when a figure who relied on image gets stripped down to the facts. Her narrative was gone, and the only thing left was truth. Jasmine Crockett sat still for a moment, letting the weight of the silence speak for itself. Then she leaned into the mic one last time. "This isn't just about one governor," she said, voice low, but clear. "This is about a system that has been too comfortable lying to people who don't have the power to fight back. It's about the everyday families being gaslit, while those in charge rewrite the rules in real time. But let me say this, in the end, intelligence, merit, and truth always rise above arrogance and manipulation." The chamber was still, but something in the air had shifted. You could feel it, a collective understanding, like people had just witnessed a dam break. A few scattered claps came from the gallery, then more. The ripple turned into a wave. Even some of Noem's former supporters sat in stunned silence, unsure how to process what they had just seen. Crockett closed her folder, stood up, and adjusted her blazer. Before stepping away from the mic, she said, "This isn't the end. This is just the warning shot." And here's the thing that made it all so real. No one tried to stop her. No one yelled over her. No procedural objection, just quiet, heavy, undeniable, history-making quiet. But now it's your turn, because moments like this don't just exist in hearing rooms and live streams. They're happening all around us. So ask yourself if this is how easily the powerful collapse under truth. How many more are sitting in silence, just waiting to be exposed? Are you watching history, or are you sleepwalking through it? If you believe in accountability, in justice, in truth, speaking louder than spin, then don't just scroll. Share this. Comment, let your voice be heard, because next time, it might not be a microphone that delivers justice. It might be you. And here's the question that should haunt every headline from today. What if we never pressed record?